So my name's Robin Thornton, like I said, partner at Holborn Assets, and I'm now going to hand you over to Edward Harris. Ed, would you like to do an intro and go from there?
Sure, thank you, Robin. Yeah, my name's Edward Harris. I'm managing partner at Holborn Assets. I'm joining you from Portugal. I moved here a couple of years ago with my family. I'm British, but I moved here from the USA, where I'd lived for a few years. I was living in Hong Kong before that, so I moved around a bit, but now very much enjoying life in Portugal. As part of that, I have been through the visa process here, so also speak from some experience, but spending a lot of time now helping clients of ours with the Portugal Golden Visa program and some of the other programs that we offer as well as a company. So, Robin, if we've got enough people registered in, should we crack on?
Yeah, I think that's good. Yep.
Okay. So I'll give you the quick 20 seconds on this. Just in terms of a little background for those who don't know who we are. Holborn is a wealth management firm. That's been our business for the last 20 plus years. Over 500 employees. We've got offices dotted all around the world. As I mentioned, I used to live in Hong Kong, so I used to run our Hong Kong office. Robin's based in Spain. I'm now in Portugal. I also run our US SEC registered investment advisory firm in the States. But large number of clients, lots of assets under management. And we moved into the citizenship part of the business about 4 years ago now, and it's grown to be a major part of our business, and we've become a major player in the market. So we actually do more Portugal Golden Visas now than any other company in the world. 2021, we did 143, we did about 200 last year, and we've done about 200 already in this first half of the year. So major player in the market here. I throw this up just for some of our clients, people that have joined from the States. Sometimes they've heard of us as Archway Private Wealth. That's the brand that we use in the US for our investment advisory business. So I mentioned we offer a wide variety of programs. We don't just do Portugal, although Portugal is definitely one of the more popular ones. I'm not going to go through this line by line by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just to give you an idea of some of the other programs that we run. The citizenship programs on the left, that's where we're really looking to acquire a passport in return for some sort of investment. Most of our business is on the right-hand side, which are the residency programs, some of which lead to a passport and some of which don't. But certainly Portugal, Greece, and Spain are sort of some of the three biggest ones that we work on. One of the key differentiators here of Portugal over those others, one of the reasons why it's been so popular, is this little square here, which is how long you have to physically stay in Portugal in order to qualify for a Portuguese passport. And it's just 5 weeks. And that really is one of the things that differentiates this program from some of the other programs that there are out there.
Ed, is that 5 weeks in one go, 1 year?
It's a total of 5 weeks over a 5-year period. You have to do basically 2 weeks in the first 2 years and 3 weeks in the next 3 years. So you can kind of break it up almost how you want, as long as you've made at least 2 trips over that period of time.
Okay.
So quick stats on the Portugal Golden Visa program. So it's been going just over a decade. Has been very successful, over 10,000 approved applications. Those who were the early applicants have since been receiving passports now for several years. Had a major revision in January last year, which removed most of residential property from the mix, and made a few other slight changes, increased the amounts on some of the other categories. But it had been fundamentally unchanged since it was set up over 10 years ago. So why change it now? Well, it's a combination of factors, in part at least some bad planning, inadequate investment by the Portuguese government has led to a big rise in Portuguese house prices, particularly in the popular areas which we consider as Lisbon, Porto in the north, and the area in the south where I live, the Algarve, another popular sort of tourist expat area. And that's led to a big increase in house prices. They really should have seen this coming. I guess the key one here is this black line, which is net migration. So if you take the number of people leaving Portugal and the number of people coming into Portugal, going back to 2012 when they launched this scheme, there was a lot of people leaving. Nearly 40,000 people a year were exiting Portugal. Portugal is not a big country. But as you'll see, that line has been going up and up and up. And about 2016, 2017, it reached break even. And since then, there's been a net inflow of people coming into Portugal, and they just haven't built the houses to support that net migration inwards. But as you'll see, the numbers are sort of 30, 40,000 people coming in. Golden Visa typically only has about 1,200 to 1,500 applicants a year. And as I mentioned, residential property got removed almost in its entirety about a year and a half ago. So really, the finger's been pointed at Golden Visa, but actually there's much bigger trends at play here. But it's become a popular thing to look at. There's some pressure from the EU to change it as well, divert some attention from it being an internal failure to blaming other people coming in. So the net effect is it has changed. So the Golden Visa as it existed and technically still exists at this particular point in time is there are 5 options in terms of how you make your investment. That investment gets you a residency permit. And after 5 years, a residency permit can translate into a Portuguese passport. There are 5 options. Almost no one did the donation to arts. There's 1 or 2 being done over the last decade. Venture capital funds have become more popular in the last couple of years. 10 or 15% of applications are through those. Doesn't always work for American tax-paying clients. Very few people transfer €1.5 million into a Portuguese bank account. Very few people set up a company. It's very expensive, a lot of bureaucracy to do. And of course, then your visa is at risk and the company doesn't succeed. So no surprise that 90-ish% of people invested in real estate, which you had to hold for 5 years. As I mentioned, January last year, residential real estate no longer qualified unless you were investing in particular sort of inland rural areas or some of the islands of Portugal. So therefore, the market really transitioned into commercial real estate at that time. We did a lot of investments in apartment hotels, other sort of hotel developments instead. I'll skip through this, but this is the amount that you'd have to invest depending on how old the property is and where it's located. So the lowest entry point was €280,000 for an older property that's being refurbished in a low density area like the Algarve where I live. If you're doing something new build in somewhere like Lisbon, then you have to invest more, and that would be 500,000. So this is how things were set up. And as I mentioned, almost everyone was doing something connected to real estate. So the red bar is buying real estate, new real estate. The orange colored bar is people doing redevelopment, so buying a refurbished property, but still real estate. And the yellow bar at the top that just starts to grow in the last couple of years, that's venture capital funds. So it's really real estate has dominated the market. Over 90% of total applicants have done real estate with a little bit of venture capital funds in there as well. So what happened? Well, in November last year, the Portuguese Prime Minister decided that he wanted to get rid of Golden Visa, introduced a bill into Parliament to end it, but actually lost that motion, and therefore there was no change. But at least gave us some visibility, and we started talking to clients to say, now is the time to possibly be doing this because the writing's on the wall. It's clear that the direction of travel is this, and therefore you should start trying to make your application if you have time to do so. And sure enough, he was back again, and on the 16th of February, he announced a whole series of proposals packaged up to try and deal with this housing price crisis in Portugal, cost of living crisis. And one of those measures was the closure of the Golden Visa program. The media picked that up at the time back in February and said, the Golden Visa program has finished. It is the end. That was very much not the case. It was kind of the beginning of the end. So it was an announcement to say, I want to end it. There was a whole set of processes that had to be gone through. There's a consultation period during which time there's a lot of industry lobbying, revisions were made, committee meetings, has to have 2 readings through Parliament. So there's been a whole process that's gone through. Originally, when he made the announcement in February, he wanted to end it in March. Well, here we are in July, and in fact, it was the 19th of July when the law has actually now passed through Parliament. So last week, all those periods of revisions and lobbying, committee meetings and so on went through, the law passed. The final stage now is Portugal has a president, Parliament passes the law, but goes to the president to sign it, and that's the point in time it actually becomes law. the key takeaways from the law as being passed through Parliament is that actually Golden Visa is going to remain. So Portugal Golden Visa will continue to exist, i.e. you will still have the ability to invest in Portugal, and in exchange, you will get a residency permit, and that residency permit, 5 weeks, 5 years, pass basic beginner's level Portuguese test, same as before, gives you the same right to get a Portuguese passport and Portuguese citizenship. What has changed is that whole real estate option now, whether it's purchase or renovation, commercial as well as residential, is being removed completely. So therefore, what we anticipate is the market will sort of accelerate its transition from real estate into that investment fund option, which is priced at, remains priced at 500,000 euros. So all the red bars, all the orange bars, that's no longer going to be possible. And it's going to be that yellow bar, venture capital funds, investment funds, which is going to be where the market's going to shift to. So I'm sure what everyone's interested in finding out now is, well, am I too late? Can I still do it? What's the situation for me at this precise point in time? As I mentioned, technically the law has not changed yet. It still needs the president to sign it off. As with everything with Portugal, there's no clear timescales on when this is going to happen. There's actually 3 things he can do. He can just sign it. He can delay signing it through and take things back to committee, or he can actually refer it to the Portuguese Supreme Court and ask them to check whether it's constitutional or not constitutional. And depending on which law firm you speak to, you can get estimates of anything from he's just going to sign it and it's going to be early August to it could be the end of September, even longer if it gets referred. So the timescales in reality are still unknown. But what is definitely the case is the law has still not changed yet. So if you have the sort of required amount of money to invest ready, which is for the entry level projects is 280,000 euros plus some legal fees, some taxes and so on. So call it 300,000 euros. If you have that money ready and you can get the documents together fast, and here we're typically talking about birth certificates, marriage certificates, criminal background checks, then there is still time. Some of the developers that we're working with can go from initial application to submitting the application to the immigration department, including the purchase of the property, in about 2 weeks. You know, we've got pretty good at doing this over the last few months when, again, we didn't know when the date was going to be. Was it going to close? Was it not going to close? Was there going to be a transitionary period? So we've got quicker and quicker, and the lawyers have got quicker and quicker at being able to process this. So if in that situation, you still want to get in at the current price points under the current schemes, you still want to invest in real estate, it is still possible, but you really need to be ready to go.
By ready to go, couple of examples. I mean, for example, a lot of people here on the call from South Africa. What about SARS, for example?
In terms of getting the money out of...
Yeah, so it's really got to be away from, or it's got to be offshore and ready to move. And in terms of, you're talking there about documents ready. Do those have to be stamped, sealed, I don't know, translated, or is it, what have you got?
Yeah. So the translations typically we can do within 24 hours at the law firms. For some of the documentation, getting things like apostille can take longer. So the lawyers are generally happy submitting it without the apostille to start off with. And then when we get the full apostille versions, they log back into the immigration portal and update the documents. It does depend slightly. So again, probably advice on that is more case by case, because we have some clients from the subcontinent, particularly where it can take a long time to get a police check done, which case may or may not be possible to do. Whereas in the UK, you can only get one of those done within 48 hours. So again, depends on your location where you are. But those are going to be some of the key documents you're going to need to have or be able to get together within a couple of weeks. Now, it may well be that it ends up being the end of September, but you should go into it thinking it's going to be needed to get everything together in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Robin, do you want to just chat about
Yeah, so I mean, following on from that, obviously we have lots of investment propositions available in Portugal with multiple developers, but we've picked this one out just to show and kind of demonstrate, what is still available. So again, if you're on that deadline, if you're ready to go, if you've got the cash, if you've got your documents, close to being completed. So this is a development, a 5-star development from Mercan Properties in Alvor. So those of you that don't particularly know Portugal so well, Alvor's on the southern coast. Been there myself many times. For me, it's a 3-4 hour drive from here in Spain. Obviously a really popular tourist destination. A lot of these investment propositions are actually driving the building of infrastructure, whether it be hotels, apartments. So it's all helping the economy and stuff as well. So this is a really nice development. Now, a quick thing about Mercan, the biggest developer by far of these types of propositions. I think they've got, Ed, is it 43 they've done now? Something.
Yeah, I think I lost track at 35 or 36.
Yeah, and a well-oiled machine, a Canadian developer. So, really good proposition. This is quite unusual because it's a 5-star property. If I'm honest, they normally just kind of do a 4-star proposition, nice walls, nice finishes, nice boxes, but this one really is up another level.
Yeah, I think it's a reflection of the location. I mean, it's really beachfront and a great location. Just behind where this photo has been taken is Portimao, which is the second biggest city in the Algarve, and the beach runs from basically where this sort of camera's positioned all the way around this coast now.
It goes for miles, hey? I mean,
yes,
right down to Lagos, as I remember.
Yeah. And there's this sort of inlet here, which is very nice, sort of calmer waters, very popular for people doing kite surfing and so on around here as well. So yeah, it's a great location. Yes, as you say, this is a 5-star resort that they're planning.
Yeah. So this again, this development, if you want to make an appointment with myself or Ed, we'll go through it in a lot more detail. But this one, ready to go. They're taking applications. They're giving a guarantee that if you can't get on the program, if it changes, basically you'll get all your money back. You'll get your fees back. Holborn have provided a guarantee as well. So any clients that are paying, any kind of legal fee, that we will reimburse those or switch them onto the 500,000 investment proposition. So this is a big property, 360 investors, over 100 million euro investment. The 5-star property, the way that this developer works is there's no real return. This is a route to citizenship and residency. It's a conduit for that. But what they do is give you kind of upfront incentives, and that is that they pay the IMT, which is the transfer tax on the property. So pretty much everywhere in the world, you've got to pay some kind of tax when you buy a property asset, and also the VAT. And the VAT comes into it because it's part of the refurbishment side of the project. This one classifies strangely because it's in a low density area, and actually it's a refurbishment of an existing building, although clearly 99.9% of the building is probably going to be removed. I would imagine it's the security hut that remains. And this is this is one of the last opportunities really to get into the Portuguese Golden Visa.
Yeah, and it is at the lowest possible investment amount, the 280,000. As Robin was saying, that's their proposition, and they're kind of being very successful at raising money for these investments by offering the lowest possible entry point for people. This is a co-investment project. So some of the projects that we've done in the past, you're actually acquiring a room or a villa or part of an actual hotel that has, you have a number and that's yours. This is a co-investment opportunity. All the Mercan projects are co-investments. So you're actually getting a share of the overall hotel project. And then at the end of the project's completion, when you've got your passport, Mercan will buy your share back off you at the original price that you paid for it. Obviously, in the meantime, you've qualified for your Portuguese passport.
A lot of clients prefer that, don't they? Because it gives them kind of surety of they're in a club. I don't know, or it feels a bit better.
Yeah, it's the simplest proposition, and crucially at this particular point in time, it's the quickest proposition to do, because when you're buying an individual unit, there's a lot of legal work in terms of doing the deeds for the property. This one's much easier to do. It's a sale of shares, and therefore much quicker and easier to go through. But as you mentioned, the idea today was to give you an update on the program, and not this particular project, merely to illustrate that this is a project that is still available and could still be done if you're in that position. And as Robin mentioned then, the developer has a guarantee written into the contracts that says that if you do it and the closure of the scheme, the president signs it before we all expect and before you've been able to get your application submitted, they will give you the option to either have all your money and all your fees returned back so you haven't lost anything, it's not cost you anything, or they will be coming up with a new investment fund structure. You can just roll your investment on into that, although that investment amount has to be $500,000 because it's now a venture capital fund. So that 280 price point's gone. So you would have to top up your investment from 280 to 500. So there is still a period of time where you still can get in at the current lower price points.
And while I'm on that, I've got tons of questions that people have when they're doing the registration. One of the questions that came up: does that amount have to be in cash, or can I have a mortgage on it in Portugal?
Okay, that amount has to be in cash. So it is the amount that you have to bring into the country to demonstrate that is your investment in Portugal. Historically, we've done higher priced properties. So, for example, a new build in Lisbon, where you have to bring 500,000 of your own money in. If the property was priced at 800,000, you could get a mortgage for the additional 300, but you have to put in the 500 because that's the minimum amount of your capital that has to go in for those projects. For these projects, for this particular project, it is a refurbishment program. As Robin points out, it's basically a new build. It qualifies as a refurbishment. It is in a low density area, so it does qualify at the 280,000 price point level, but you have to put in 208,000 of your capital. You can't put in 10% or 20% or 50% and mortgage the rest. That has to be the amount that you're bringing in of your own funds.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And then I guess sort of on the theme of the transition into the investment fund structure, this is actually moving closer and closer to our traditional core business that we've been in for 20 years. As I mentioned at the very beginning, the first slide, we are an international wealth management business. Running investment funds, managing investment funds, advising clients on investment funds is our core business. And yes, Mercan's going to have any new investment fund structure, which we will offer for clients. There will be others around which we will have our compliance team, our lawyers go through, vet, and we'll be selecting the best in class ones of those to offer to clients. We anticipate in September, again, to tie in with when we think the president is most likely to be signing the documentation. Now, it may be that those time horizons still don't fit with you. You can't get the money together before September. There are other alternatives. And then just very quickly, a sort of final slide, just to talk you through pros and cons and help people understand some of the differences that are around. Greece, very popular scheme in Europe, and probably second to Portugal. Advantages of Greece: you can still buy residential property, so you can actually invest in something you could go and stay in and live in yourself. In downtown Athens, the prices have gone up in terms of what qualifies, but there are still options in the surrounding areas around Athens and some of the islands that are at a similar sort of price point that Portugal is about to get rid of. So that's sort of 280, 300,000 price point. Processing time for the visas themselves are fast. Portugal, not fast. It's taking sort of 12 to 24 months at the moment to get those applications processed. So in terms of if you want to get your residency permit quick, Greece is definitely ahead there. You get the same access to the whole Schengen area, so think of the majority of mainland Europe. You can access and travel within once you have your Greek residency card. There's actually no physical stay requirement in Greece. So in Portugal, you have to do those 5 weeks over 5 years. Greece, there is no requirement to spend any time there. So if you just want to put a sort of flag in the ground as an option for you to be able to go and live in the future if you wanted to or if you needed to, but you don't want to have to keep going there in the meantime, then Greece fits that bill. Disadvantage of Greece is, unlike Portugal, where you can qualify for a passport by only spending those 5 weeks over 5 years. To get citizenship and a passport for Greece, you have to have lived there for many years, and you need to pass a business level Greek exam, which is sort of near fluency level. So we tend to think of Greece as being more about a residency investment rather than a citizenship investment. Spain, Robin, do you want to talk for this one, as this is more your area?
Yeah, well, I'm here, so yeah. So Spain's got a couple of options, really. One is at the 500,000 level, so you can qualify for the residency by investment, and you can buy anything. I mean, literally your dream holiday home on the coast, your apartment in, Madrid, or whatever you want, as long as it's at 500,000. And also there is a commercial option as well that we have, where it's a little bit less, 375. Obviously, it's a commercial option, and that's after the rent rebate. So basically, it's a commercial property or commercial properties in both Madrid and Barcelona, so where all the economic activity is. And those are leased out on long-term leases to tenants, and the developer basically repays back to you in advance. So it reduces the capital required. Now, key things about Spain, unusually so, I hate to say that, I do live here, it's a really fast processing time. It's cost effective. There are no huge government fees. And you can, if you're from a former Spanish colony, Mexico, Cuba, Philippines, Dominica, Guatemala, there's a whole list of ex-Spanish colonies that if you physically want to come and live in Spain, you can get a passport within 2 years. So it's extremely attractive for those nationalities. And again, there's no physical stay requirement. If you want to buy a lovely holiday home here, a nice apartment, you can Airbnb it, you get a return on it. We can do that for you. We can do the whole management of that. We have terms of business and connections, and obviously I do because I'm here. The disadvantages are really the path to citizenship. It takes 10 years. A friend of mine is just applying for his. He's lived here for 10 years. And you also need to have really good Spanish language tests to get to that citizenship. So that's, I guess, the pros and cons of the two. Obviously gets full access to Schengen area as well.
Good. And then the last one, which is slightly sort of different proposition and sometimes appeals to different people. St. Lucia. So St. Lucia is attractive for our clients who are really looking to get a better passport. So perhaps have a passport at the moment that is very prohibitive in terms of them being able to travel easily, whether that's for business or for their family, for leisure. Difficult to get visas to travel to Europe, difficult to get visas to travel to lots of different places. So they're looking simply to make their lives easier and give themselves some more options moving forward. St. Lucia's definitely the quickest, lowest cost route just to get a strong passport. Time takes, they quote slightly less than this, but we like to be comfortable and say it's 6 months to get the passports. The costs depends slightly on how many people in your family, how many siblings or parents or kids you're including on it. But around $100,000, you can get your family a set of passports from St. Lucia. Gives you access to travel anywhere in the Schengen area, visa-free, and the UK as well, visa-free for 90 days. If you so wished, you can go and live anywhere in the 15 CARICOM states. That's the majority of the Caribbean. with no physical stay requirement, although we don't anticipate many people will actually go live in the Caribbean. It's more about giving themselves a strong passport where they can travel without some of the restrictions they might have at the moment. The disadvantages are simply that it is a donation at 100,000. It's technically billed as an investment. Again, we can explain that in more detail on one-on-one call. But really, that you're not getting that money back. So it is 100,000 out of pocket in return for the passports. But it is a life-changing event for a lot of people, and why it's very popular. And yes, you have a right to travel extensively with it, and for example, stay in Europe for 90 days at a time. But it's not giving you the right to live in the EU, which the Portugal scheme, the Greece scheme, and the Spain scheme are giving you the rights to live in those countries with an eventual right to live anywhere in the EU once you've got citizenship.
Yeah, and also with St. Lucia, they just announced that visa-free travel to Canada. I think that was a couple of weeks ago, so that's another plus for St. Lucia.
Yeah. Okay, so conscious of time, we have a few minutes left for any questions, Robin. If you
I've got a few here. I mean, you've covered a lot of them. What's the individual cost for a golden visa? Well, that's come from a gentleman in Johannesburg. So, sorry, a lady in Johannesburg. Apologies. We can do that on an individual basis and provide quotations. Again, it depends on your family unit and how many people you want to include in the process. Let me just see.
The minimum is the 280,000, which you have to invest to qualify. And then, as Robin's saying, depending on how many people there are some legal fees, there are some government fees, processing fees, notary fees, a few bits and pieces, which is why I kind of put on the slide around 300,000 is your sort of traditional amount that's required in total.
Yeah, processing time. Again, someone's asked here, what's the kind of processing time? How long can you expect before you get residency cards?
Yeah. So
how long's a piece of string?
So to submit, so the key things in terms of what you have to have done in order to still get your Portugal Golden Visa under the current terms is you need to have submitted your application to CEF, who are the Immigration Department in Portugal. That's the key thing to have done. When you make your submission, they give you a receipt number. And as long as you've got your receipt number before the president has signed it into law, then you're good. The rules change afterwards. The abandoned golden visa program doesn't matter because you've got your receipt number saying you got in on the old terms. And the law is very clear as it's been drafted. As long as you make that submission before the law changes, then you're grandfathered in, as the expression is. You still qualify. So the rules changing afterwards has no effect. In terms of how long until you get your residency permit where you could get on a plane and go and live full-time in Portugal, that's harder to say. So it used to be around 8 to 10 months. Then when the Ukraine war started, Portugal, like a lot of countries in Europe, kind of opened up and let a lot of Ukrainian refugees in. That caused some delays, and we got to sort of 12, 14, 16 months. There is some changes happening to the Immigration Department here in October. It's being sort of reorganized and some of its responsibilities being changed around. As Robin said, very hard to say at the moment. I'd say it's going to be at least 12 months. Hopefully not much more than that, but we just don't know at the moment.
I would bank on 12 months. Yeah, definitely. Michael's asked here, what other real estate investments do you currently have that provide a return?
That I would feel comfortable, or we feel comfortable as a company, offering and be able to complete within a limited time period. None. There are other options than the ones that we showed you. There's a project with there's a Wyndham Hotel project that they're paying sort of a nominal sort of upfront sort of rental return. Makes the numbers probably slightly better. Again, has the same sort of buyback guarantee that if things don't get completed in time, they'll also give you money back. So there are, say, 2 or 3 around at the moment that we feel comfortable can actually process an application from start to finish in a couple of weeks. But the projects that have the investment returns are typically the projects where you're buying a deed to an individual unit that you're then personally going to receive the rental return on that unit and then have the right to sell your unit on the open market in the future. And those projects, we really stopped talking to clients about those probably about a month ago, as we realized this was coming to an end. It takes longer to do. It's a longer process to go through. And if you're not already well through that process, we wouldn't feel comfortable starting that process now. And it's not possible to run the same buyback guarantees on those because there are quite significant sales taxes that you have to pay to the government when you're buying those properties. And even if you say you did a €500,000 purchase, there's about 60,000 euros worth of government taxes to pay. Even if the developer said, okay, I'll give you back your 500,000, well, the government aren't going to give you back your 60,000. So, as responsible parties, we don't feel comfortable, with those projects at this point in time. Maybe other companies are, but it's not something we encourage clients to do. We want to do it where we're comfortable that it can be processed in time, and if it's not, then there's a clear out or options for the client. Either you can get your money back and it's cost you nothing, or you can roll it over into an investment fund.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Russell asks, how long can you have the St. Lucia passport?
It is a permanent passport. So there's no time period with it. And it can get passed down through generations as well. So it is effectively you have added a nationality to your yourself and your family.
Okay. I've got loads of other questions from people that are pre-listed those, but I think you've covered pretty much everything else there. So I think unless we've got any other questions in the chat box, let me just check. I don't think we have. That's all. So what about recording this? How do people get in contact with us? What do we do? What do they do next?
Okay. So if they would like to have a follow-up conversation with us one-on-one, either myself or Robin, then our email addresses are on the screen at the moment. We will, over the next 24 to 48 hours, once our excellent marketing and IT team have sort of cut it all up, this webinar will be on YouTube, and we'll send out, email out the links as well. So if anything I went through too fast, or you wanted to go through again, then there's going to be opportunity to do that. So again, we'll send that out to you all as well. So you'll receive something either from myself or from Robin in your email boxes. But should you wish to sort of contact us any quicker than that, then either one of us, the email addresses are on the page at the moment.
Okay, great. And when's the next webinar? I'm testing you here because I know the answer.
Next Wednesday, the 2nd.
Very good.
And it is 6 o'clock my time in Portugal, which is the same as London time, 7 o'clock for you. And it is on Spain.
We're focusing on Spain, exactly. So anybody there that's interested in that one, we're going to do a regular every week, every Wednesday, in terms of residency and citizenship. Really, we're going right through till September, so all kinds of topics and different ones. So people that are interested in that, they can get some information for free and obviously some fantastic advice. So brilliant.
Good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Great. Thanks a lot, everybody. Take care. Have a good evening.